Hello everyone, I'm bringing you an unboxing video today. I hope there's been a long enough gap between this and the previous unboxing video on the channel. I've tried to make some videos looking at more substantive videos, looking at bits and pieces in a bit more detail. Unfortunately, I think in a couple of weeks' time we'll have another unboxing video because I'm expecting some bits and pieces to arrive from the US. I say unfortunately, hopefully people do enjoy these as well, although I know for some they're not as interesting as videos looking at individual bits of kit in more detail. But nevertheless, what we're having a look at here is some recently arrived East German bits and pieces. And once again, a huge thank you to Tommy Richter, who's put these together for me from various bits and pieces I've purchased from eBay in Germany, and he's then boxed them all up. I think a family member boxed them all up as they have done before and has sent them on to me. So we're going to have a look at what's arrived now. So here we have the box of bits and pieces to have a look at, and there's some interesting bits and pieces in here. Obviously the uniform is a rather different colour than what we're used to in terms of MVA grey. As you can see, it's much more of a blue tone, and we'll talk a bit more about that in just a moment. I'm going to move the box out of the way and obviously dig out these bits and pieces individually, and we'll talk about them in some detail. Obviously it's an unboxing video, so it'll be a relatively quick run through, and various elements of what we see here will appear on the channel going forward in more detail, of course. But we'll pull this to one side now and have a look at what's arrived piece by piece. So the first thing we'll dig out of the box here is a peaked cap, service cap. And as you can see here, this is a distinctive blue colour as opposed to grey, which we're used to looking at. And this is the cap for the Kommissar grades of the East German Customs Administration, Zoll, and it is for the various Kommissar ranks, Kommissar grades within that organisation. There were various different grades and sort of equivalent to officer grades. You can see with the officer style silver chin cord and the professional soldiers or officers cap badge there. Although I think by the end, as was the case in the MVA, in the 80s, this was extended to other grades as well, as opposed to the sort of less detailed aluminium badge or cockade. You have this pressed steel example, which has a bit more detailing in the leaves and so forth. Obviously, primarily used by officers in the MVA, I think up into the 1980s. Professional soldiers, professional NCOs were also granted it. And I think at that stage, some lower ranks in the Zoll, in the customs, were also granted it as well. That certainly seems to be the case in photographs. I've not been able to find any actual sort of written information, any details of the date of change or anything. That's a detail to talk about in the future. As you can see, the body of the cap and the band are both blue, and they're in the sort of, the crown is in the whipcord material, and you can see here the same is used for the band around there. You have green piping in the top here and around the base of the crown, which of course is synonymous with sort of border operations. Obviously the Grenztruppen used this colour as well, but it's also a police colour, so it sort of fits from that point of view. This is a size 55. I do have an example of one of these in my size, but this came with the uniform, which we're going to look at in just a moment. So that's a quick look at this cap. In terms of the overall form, it basically follows the standard form for East German peak caps for military, police, etc. You've got the pressed plastic, moulded plastic peak, and that sort of the size and the shape and everything. And obviously the furniture in terms of the cord and the cockade and everything are basically standardised, which makes a lot of sense. So that's the cap that's arrived. The next thing to look at here is the jacket, which came with this lot of uniform. And I say the cap came with this as well as a lot of the other items we're going to look at. It was one big lot. And this is for one of the senior commissar ranks in the customs, with 3 stars, 3 pips on the shoulder board. It's a plain flat shoulder board with this silver braid around the edge. The commissar rank had a single star, and then going up from that you have obviously 2 other grades, one with 2 stars and one with 3 as we have here. I forget what the prefixes are off the top of my head for those ranks, but this is a sort of commissioned officer rank, I guess you could say, the equivalent of that within the customs. And you can see the collar tab is also edged with silver braid there. You have the badge of the Customs Administration on the collar badge there. Medal ribbons fitted to this as well, as you can see here. And then we have an anniversary badge there. You can see that actually has the Zollverwaltung der DDR. That's the Customs Administration of East Germany, basically of the German Democratic Republic. So you have the anniversary badge from 1982 on the pocket there. And I think, if I remember correctly, on the other side you have the Customs Academy badge on the right, over the right breast pocket there, as you can see. And we'll get a close-up of that. So it's nice that this came with all of these. They weren't frequently worn, from what I can make out. You don't see them in a lot of photographs of customs officials on duty, so they are just pinned back, so they're easy to remove and replace if you wish to. But just an example of that there. Also, an interesting thing to note with this, the shoulder boards are attached with blue cords, of course, rather than the sort of drab or olive green that you see with military uniforms. So it's nice that it has proper shoulder board cords there attaching the shoulder boards to the uniform, and you can see they attach in exactly the same way as you see with MVA shoulder boards. So that's the jacket. We'll definitely have a look at that in a bit more detail in the future. Which came with that as well is a shirt blouse, which is a jacket blouse, which is obviously the shirt that's designed to be worn untucked and obviously has the elasticated section around the waist there. Just nice to have another one of these. It's a fairly standard item, but it does have the same shoulder boards fitted, as you can see here, which is nice to have. It's nice to have those. I think that may have different, so it's got the screw back buttons, interestingly, as opposed to being affixed with cords. That's interesting to see, just a slight difference there. I don't have a set of those already, so just nice to have a set of boards with those buttons. And oddly, this has the tie, but this is you can see it's a slightly nicer quality tie than you see with the MVA, made of a sort of rayon material possibly, in this blue colour, but the same elasticated tie, basically as you see with the other East German uniforms. So we have the blouse there, the blouse jacket and the tie, and another set of shoulder boards. There are some other bits of that uniform, but just the next thing that's in the box is another 40L shirt. A little bit of staining to the collar there, but that's fine. I wanted this to go on mannequins if I'm doing more than one mannequin sort of side by side. I only have one shirt that really fits, and I want to leave, or one shirt that fits, which isn't in all of its original packaging. And from a collecting point of view, I'd like to leave those other shirts as they are. So I just bought another one of these to go on the mannequin. Cheap enough. So worth throwing that in. Right, a couple of NVA ties. Speaking of NVA ties, again for use on mannequins, although I may keep one of these. They actually came with the sort of tag still on them there. Interesting design of tag. And obviously they're still in the cardboard, although that has been folded over. But I may well keep one of these as it is, and that means I'll have two for use. Again, they were cheap enough. Oddly, I've seen these sort of go up in price, particularly MVA examples. They are still 10 a penny. You can find them everywhere, but the price has gone up a little bit. So I saw a couple of them for sale at a good price, so picked those up as well. Right, an odd thing here. These were sold as working uniform for customs. I just found them in one of my searches I was doing, and they're an oddball thing. They're a heavily lined, padded winter trousers, very similar to the MVA winter trousers in that regard. The adjustment buttons at the bottom there, and obviously you've got these pockets with double buttons on them, but they're in this sort of black padded finish here, black version of the plastic buttons, which are normally grey, of course. They do have D-rings there for the braces or suspenders, as you can see. Reverse button on the front there. They do have a button fly. So quite what they are, I don't know. I've not had a rummage through these to look for labels or anything as yet. They may well have been dyed looking at it. I think that may have been the size label there. So it's possible these are winter trousers that have been over dyed, though why they've got black buttons and so forth, I'm not entirely sure, unless the buttons picked up the dye as well. I don't know. But they were really cheap, and so I just chucked them in and added them to the order, hoping to learn more about them down the line. It does look like they may have been over dyed. There's a bit of sort of fading around the pockets there. For what purpose and when that was done, I don't know. The dye is obviously taken to the sort of nylon or rayon lining there, so I don't know whether that would be typical of dyes used at the time. But yeah, I think that will have been the size label at some point in the past that's been completely over dyed. So it does look like these are a pair of trousers that have been dyed for whatever reason, winter trousers that have been dyed. So just an interesting thing to add to the collection. Right, the final part of that uniform, that Zoll uniform, I think, are these trousers, which you can see here, the service trousers. And these are in a G48. The jacket, I think, is M48, and these are G48. So absolutely fine. I can manage with G or M48. I can make it work. So that means I have a complete set of the uniform for customs now, which is nice to have. Right, let's have a look. What else have we got in here? Oh no, there are a couple of other bits of the Zoll uniform. Two field service hats or caps, one of which is size 56, has the MDI, the Ministry of Interior stamp there, as you can see, U being the date stamp, which I'd have to look up. And then this one, as I remember from the listing, doesn't have any stamps in, but it's slightly larger, so that's more my sort of size, 57. I may well move the 56 on, as it's not really much use to me, but just a couple of those there. They were produced and issued as well, so as well as the service caps. Sort of in connection with that, I have an idea in the future of putting something together for someone engaged in checking through cargo and so forth, both on the railways and on road. Of course, this was very necessary. So I bought a pair of, I believe are East German marked work gloves, which are these ones here, and they came with a whole load of other gloves in here, as you can see. These have CE mark on, so they're much more modern, I would say. But some of the others, I don't know. They just came as one big lot. I mainly wanted these, and it was a matter of a couple of euros, I think, for the whole lot. So I just bought the whole lot, and obviously I've ended up with a whole load of work gloves. So these, not sure if I'm particularly interested in those. These are useful for the sort of Zoll setup when considering men who were involved in checking freight and searching, particularly dog handlers and so forth, and that sort of thing. Checking both road freight and rail freight. Definitely we used work gloves like these. So as I say, for a couple of euros or however much it was for the listing, it wasn't a lot of money. I've ended up with these, which are what I wanted, and a whole load here, which I'm not sure about. So we will, I'll have a look through those in a bit more detail and try and work out when they date from and where they're from. Not part of that listing of Zoll uniform, but still customs related. So that's what I'm misremembering, is what I had added to this order. These are both customs issue, and this is a standard sort of shirt for wear underneath the service uniform. And this is a jacket blouse, and as we saw before, but in this dark blue colour. And these are worn by, again, those units involved in checking freight, checking cargo and so forth. Obviously this worn in the summer they had a grey working uniform, which was a working version of the service uniform, so cut very much like the service uniform. Hello Apollo. Yes, off we go. Cut very much like the service uniform, but made in a sort of a grey cotton, I think, or grey poly cotton, for sort of working in dirtier environments and so forth, around railway yards, sort of clambering in and around lorries and things to check loads. The trousers from that would be worn with these in the summer, and then that would be worn with the blue shirt, potentially, when the entire uniform was worn. And this would be worn with a tie, of course. So just added those to the collection. They were for sale. They're about my size. 30 and 9N is probably a little bit small on me in terms of length primarily, but a 40L is perfect. So it was worth picking those up. Again, they weren't expensive, and just when your mind's on the custom stuff, then you may as well. A set of aluminium cutlery here, and the reason for this is there is a great photograph out there of a set of equipment which was taken from a border guard who basically managed to escape to the west, and his equipment was laid out and photographed, his belt kit basically, and in his ammunition pouch he's carrying a set of cutlery, and it appears to be this set of cutlery. The fork has quite distinctive tines, as you can see, sort of distinctive shape, and you've got the fork and the spoon, I think it is, both poking up out of the ammunition pouch. There's no sign of the knife or the teaspoon, of course, but the fork and the spoon both poking out of the ammunition pouch. So in the hopes of at some point replicating that photograph, I picked up a set of the cutlery. Right, so related to sort of customs in my head anyway, is a set of these Artos torches. I just like old torches anyway. I have a collection of these sort of various Western manufacturers of these, Western makers. I keep knocking the switch there on the red one. This actually has batteries in and was sent over with the batteries. You can see it does work. The others I'm not sure on. But these were used, both the smaller and the larger examples were used by customs when inspecting cargo, when inspecting around cars, looking inside engine bays, that sort of thing, basically as a light source. So they're quite clunky and sort of, I guess they're quite retrograde technology in terms of flashlights or torches by the 1980s, but you do see exactly this pattern used. You know, sort of the design really dates back to the 1930s in terms of what you see in the West, and obviously what you would have seen in Germany as well in that time period. And then obviously this pattern just continued to be manufactured, much as there were sort of better designs appearing in the West that provided a better light and so forth. These are what were used and what was available from Artas at the time in East Germany. So we have those there. Also, I think, yes, not particularly interesting to look at, but they actually provided this set of batteries with one of these. I don't know which seller provided the batteries, but I have a set of German, I guess, classic, I don't know, sort of an own brand alkaline D-cell batteries there. So that's quite useful to have. Right, we're getting towards the smaller items now. So I did mention on the previous unboxing video where I got the large 500mm lens that it needed an adapter, or needed the rear mount for the M42 thread, and that's what we have here. A piece of aluminium, nicely machined piece of aluminium with the M42 thread here, and then this, you unscrew a ring on the back of the lens. This slots in, aligning this slot here with a nub in the back of the lens, and you screw the cap back on, and then this is fitted, ready to fit it onto an M42 camera. So very useful to have. That means I can use the lens in displays in the future. Another item which has arrived, which we talked about not that long ago, were the hand signals, the flares used by the MVA, Grenztruppen, etc. And we have here a hand signal 3-Stern Rot, so a 3-star red hand signal. I don't think I have one of these already, not a 3-star anyway. So it's nice to add this to that collection. Just an illustration of another type of flare, another variation on the hand signals that we used. And then we have the box within the box. So I'll pull this out and we'll start rummaging through this. There's some quite interesting bits and pieces in here, and I'm just looking at the timer on the video, even going through this relatively quickly. We're still taking quite a bit of time. So what we have here, I think there are actually 2 of these. So I think it's interesting. So we have a pilot's qualification or classification clasp here with a hanger underneath. And I think I did unbox recently a set of bits and pieces that included one of these, but it didn't have the provision for hangers on the back. You can see that there. The hanger is for 1,000 hours, and the red is for combat aircraft, basically. So fighters, fighter bombers, ground attack aircraft, that sort of thing. What we have on this one here is blue. You can see the hanger is otherwise identical, even 1,000 hours is what's marked on these, but the blue is for transport pilots, helicopter pilots, that sort of thing. So useful for me, my Grenzflieger uniform I'm putting together, to have the blue hanger. I think that one of these, possibly the damaged one, has been included with the order beyond what I actually purchased, which is very generous of the seller if so. I certainly purchased this one with the 1,000 hours in red, with a separate hanger, which will be, oh, there it is, separate hanger from a different seller, 3,000 hours one there, to replace this for display. But obviously I have this one as well, which wouldn't be too much really to fix. A bit of flatten that off, get another screw of the right size, and these are just a very small metric thread screw of the right size, and some araldite is actually how I would end up doing it. Bit of araldite on the back there. I have both actual nuts there, as it were. So I actually have 2 flying badges there. We're both able to accept hangers, which is lovely. Didn't expect that. So 2 of those there. And as I say, we have a separate hanger there with 3,000 hours, which will be used on one of these. And a leaflet from the seller there. Just, there we go. Included in there. I'll just pull this out as well. This is another classification clasp stored in here. This is the general classification clasp for where another classification clasp couldn't be issued. And this is the penultimate design of these. The last design appeared in 1986, 6 off the top of my head, and therefore is a very late thing, late development, that particular design. This is the preceding design, which was still worn right up to the end. So pleased to have that. It'll be useful. It'll go on a uniform. I think I have an officer's uniform that has holes for a classification clasp, which I will fit that onto at some point going forward. I'll pull these out now just to come to mind. Little pack of Haribo. I think I've ordered from the same seller. I must have ordered from the same seller because I've had a little pack of Haribo gummy bears before. Is it Gold Baren? Bären. Sorry, but the A is a A, isn't it, because of the umlaut? But yeah, interesting that they're called that in Germany. Interesting. Right. Anyway, you can tell I'm making this video at the end of a very long week, possibly. A set of shoulder boards for customs again, and I mentioned the lower grades had green edge shoulder boards, and these are another set of silver edge shoulder boards. What I really wanted was the basic commissar rank, so these will have a star attached or a pip attached to each of these. Same with these, they were never worn plain like this. There was no rank that corresponded to that. You had 1 star or more, basically, as far as I remember. I don't think there is any rank within these 2 grades that just has the bare board. You always have some distinguishing mark on it, at least 1 star, basically. So that's what I plan to do with those. Another set of shoulder boards here for the for Grenztruppen, obviously an NCO rank, which are just something I wanted to pick up for use on a uniform at some point. I would like to find the Grenztruppen NCO's uniform with or without boards, but pick those up. They were cheap enough. I think this might be another little freebie. It certainly wasn't part of anything I'd ordered, but a little bead puzzle there. And that is, they're EVP 20 Pfennig, I assume, and that Herzer Schmuck on the back there, which a little East German toy, which is not something I ordered, as I said, but that's been thrown as a freebie by someone. We'll deal with the cassettes all together. These are, I think, largely Amiga produced cassettes. I'll talk about this lot first of all. So these are just a random collection of different artists that were for sale all together. These cassettes all came together. So Kenny Rogers, Shaved Fish from the Lennon and the Plastic Ono band. No time for that whatsoever. No time for Yoko Ono whatsoever. The Hollies, We Are the World, which actually appears to be CBS. That's obviously not an Amiga cassette. And then Paul McCartney and Wings, interestingly. So Paul McCartney and the Wings. So yeah, those were all one lot. But what I really wanted from the lot was this, which is Auf der Seidenstraße and Pond. Now, Seidenstraße is Silk Road, so this is On the Silk Road by Pond. Pond are a synth band formed in East Germany. I think their first album was early 80s. I believe this is 1986, Auf der Seidenstraße. And the music from this, or one of the tracks from this, certainly features in Grenzaufklärer, which is there's a film produced by the MVA showing border reconnaissance soldiers, and a very useful reference, and it's available on YouTube, and one of the tracks from this features in that. I say it's from 1986, so this is the first cassette I have from an East German band, obviously produced in East Germany by Amiga. So very happy to have this. I'll be interested to play it and see if it works. I won't be playing it very much, of course. Oh, that's interesting. There's I'm not sure what that relates to, but there's a little tag in here, as you can see, so that will go back in there and be kept in there with it. So yeah, the other cassettes are really sort of superfluous, really. I'm not particularly interested in any of these artists individually. I'm certainly not the greatest fan of the work of the Beatles after they split up, so each individual artist so much. But yeah, so I may move those on if any of my friends are interested in any East German cassettes. Obviously that one's not really of any particular interest to me anyway, not being East German. But yes, so that's what I wanted from that little lot. And it was a cheap little lot just to get this cassette, but obviously the others came with it. And the final thing to look at here is another Dio stick, and I have 2 of these already in a red colour and a green colour, and they're slightly different scents, all from Florena, of course. And this is the Arctic version, and there's an Arctic brand of different products, I think introduced in the 80s. And so I now have one of these as well to sort of complete that little set. And if I open this here, it's pretty dried up, but there's still a bit of scent coming off that. And obviously it would have pushed up and it rub on deodorant basically. So that will just be added to the other two in the sort of wash kit items collection that I already have. So that's the last of these bits and pieces. I hope it's been interesting looking through these, obviously in brief, because this is just the unboxing video. Particularly the uniform items will show up on the channel going forward in more detail, no doubt. And a huge thank you, as ever, to Tommy Richter for putting all these bits and pieces together for me and sending them over. So I hope you found it interesting looking at this. A huge thank you again to Tommy for organising this and putting all the bits and pieces together for me. Once again, Tommy, very much appreciated. It's also helping me with a little project which will show up on the channel going forward, which I'll be interested to talk about. So there's another item which was purchased, which has stayed with Tommy to have a few little bits and pieces done to it, and we will see that at some point in the future as well. If you have found this interesting and you'd like to see more of this sort of content, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And whether you're new to subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the notification button down below, and that will of course alert you when I upload future videos. That's everything for this video, so until next time, bye for now.